Have you found that on a regular, ordinary day, you don't have that much trouble sleeping anymore, but when there is a trip or some commitment or some type of stress, well, the night before that, you have trouble sleeping. You have this final hurdle. If you have experienced that, if you're in that position, in that situation, then this video is for you. We're going to talk about 3 ways to meet this, 3 things to think about that I think can really, really help. But before we jump in, I just want to say that if you find everything that you need on your path to sleeping well for the rest of your life here in these videos, that is amazing. Now, if you would like a little bit more support on your path to that place, then do head to our website and check out some options, including the now very popular one-to-one option with Coach Michelle. Lately, a lot of people have scheduled like these one-on-one Zoom sessions with Coach Michelle, and the feedback so far has been very good. So definitely check it out if you think that's something for you. Now, that said, let us talk about today's topic. So if you find yourself saying this, something like this, on a typical day, I actually sleep pretty well. There's no struggle. But when there's something the following day, some type of stress, then the struggle is back. Oftentimes, clients. I mean, this expression, I named it this, so to speak, because that's what people say. Like I feel like I have this final hurdle. I'm doing well, but I have this final hurdle to overcome, the last hurdle. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This situation when there's some kind of commitment or some stress, that is the most common final hurdle situation, but it could be other things too. It could be, for example, that I sleep pretty well, but I'm still really tired, or I still have some anxiety, I still have these jerks or palpitations. There's this last thing, this last residual thing that I want to tackle, overcome, conquer. This last hurdle have to get over, and it applies in that situation too. Now, let's jump right into these 3 things. So, what 3 things have I picked that I think can be really helpful here? Well, first of all, this is a last hurdle, and why do I say the smiling? Well, it's because it's kind of like, well, of course, this is what we're talking about, right? But what I want to point to that is that your sense that I've left a lot of struggle. A lot of struggle is over, and now there's just this left. This is true, and this is, of course, a place. This is a time to see that things have changed. Thanks to your willingness to learn, thanks to the courage within, thanks to kind of the hard work you've done, you have arrived at a place where there is so much less struggle. That is great. So I just want to say that this is great if you find yourself in this kind of last hurdle situation. It often feels frustrating because there's this last thing left, so to speak. But just take note of the fact that this is a last hurdle. You've done a lot of amazing hard work, and give yourself a big, pat on the back for that. So that was just number one. You have left much struggle. That is great. Now, the second point here is, I think, the most important one, which is when you're in this kind of last hurdle situation, then do take a moment to ponder what happened to all the hurdles in the past. Maybe it was, I always had trouble falling asleep. I was awake all night. I had all this anxiety. I had trouble staying asleep, etc. I was confused. All these were hurdles, and what happened to those? What happened to all those hurdles that you had in the past? Well, let's look at the first principle, like the most fundamental truth in the space of sleep and emotions and thoughts, etc., is that the more we try to control something like sleep or emotions, the more trouble we have. The more we try to control sleep, the more trouble sleeping we have. The more we try to not have racing thoughts, the more racing thoughts we have. The more we try to control anxiety and get rid of it, the more anxious we become. That's the first principle. So really, when you think of it this way, you can see that you actually didn't jump over any hurdle. You didn't overcome anything. You didn't conquer anything. You didn't beat anything. The hurdles, rather, they ceased to exist. They evaporated when you ceased to try to jump. You did less. You became more kind to yourself. You understood more. You tried less. And then as the resistance faded, as you weren't trying to overcome anything or trying to jump, then there was no hurdle. So the hurdles just ceased to exist thanks to this. And why do I point this out so much? Well, it is because when you're in this last hurdle situation, so often the brain gets confused. It starts to think that, I was able to sleep. I managed to be less anxious. I managed to stop obsessing. I jumped over all these hurdles. And now I just have to figure out how I can jump over this last one too. And that, trying again, trying to figure out a way, trying to find a trick or some method or some technique that can make you jump, that can make you control, that is the struggle that you've already abandoned. Okay, so that is the tricky thing with the last hurdle situation, is that it can seem like you achieved something and now you have to, achieve this last jump, but that is not at all the case. That is not at all the case. You abandon these hurdles or trying to jump over them and they disappeared. And so what is the final thing I want to talk about here? Well, it is that the final hurdle, again, it's not something to jump over, but rather it is a final invitation to let things be. You've learned so much. You've become much more, you've had so much more insight. You've become kinder to yourself. You started responding less to whatever happens. And this final hurdle is sort of a final invitation to let things be. Whether it is, you're going to travel and every time you travel, you have some trouble sleeping. Well, be kind to yourself. Don't pressure yourself to fix it. Rather see that it is typical to have some trouble sleeping when there is a trip or an exam or something like that. And you may still have more trouble sleeping than someone who's never had trouble sleeping, but that is not unexpected at all, right? So the final hurdle is a final invitation to let things be. And when you let this final hurdle be, then there is really peace for the rest of your life. Of course, there'll be like some hurdles. Like, we will always have the invitation to jump, right? But when we take every invitation to jump to let things be, then we arrive at that place where there's more and more peace for sure. Hope this is helpful to you. Do let me know in the comment section what you thought, and look forward to having you back here real soon. Until then, take it easy.